My name is Hiliary Benn. I'm the Labour candidate for the Leeds Central parliamentary constituency.
Okay, marvellous.
So, over a quarter of Leeds Central voters are under the age of 25, most of them being students. What policy do you think you hold that most applies to them? What do you think will win them over?
I think for those who want to go to university, the fact that we're going to cut the tuition fees from £9,000 to £6,000 and equally importantly raise the maintenance grant, which will really help students who come from lower income backgrounds. But the second part is also about education, is that every young person who doesn't want to go to university, and not everybody does, who leaves school with the grades will get a good quality apprenticeship. It's really important for the future of the country. We've got the skills that going to university can offer, but we've also got the skills that apprenticeships can offer, so we can build a strong economy with better jobs and better paid jobs, which is what young people want.
So you mentioned the tuition fee cuts there, and I'm going to read you a quick quote from Chancellor of the Exchequer George Osborne in response to the announcement that Labour had of said tuition fee cuts. Here's what he said. "This will cause less money to be invested in universities, leading to less student places and a higher rate of unemployment." So I just want to hear your thoughts on that, and what is Labour's plan to ensure that this issue doesn't arise?
Well, not for the first term. I'd say the Chancellor, George Osborne, has got things wrong. The fact is, I voted against the trebling of tuition fees. The Lib Dems came into government promising to abolish them and then stood on their head and voted to treble them. And we have made it absolutely clear how we're going to pay for the cut that we will put in place so that universities will get the money. What is absolutely clear is that the current scheme isn't working. Most students are not going to be able to pay off the debt in full. It's costing the government a lot of money. So I don't accept the argument. The investment will go into higher education, but students won't face such large fees as they do at the moment, and we set out how we're going to pay for it. So that criticism is just ill-informed.
Well, even dropping tuition fees to £6,000, people are still very unlikely to pay the entirety of the loan amount back. So some people have stated that this is just shifting debt around long term and a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. So, in your opinion, wouldn't the money be better spent through better maintenance loans and financial support?
Because we're both going to cut the tuition fee from £9,000 to £6,000, and we're going to increase the maintenance loan by £400, and that will particularly benefit students from lower income backgrounds, and that will help. It will mean that students will leave university with a lower debt than would currently be the case, and there'll be more hope for students from lower income backgrounds. I want as many young people who want to go to university to be able to do that. And if you look back over the last 50, 60 years, obviously the participation rates have increased very significantly. It's important for the future of the economy because we live in a highly competitive world. We're a strong economy, we've got to stay strong, and that means we've got to have the right skills. And that's why higher education and apprenticeships are really important for the future of our economy.
Another of Labour's policies is tightening the system around short-term student visitor visas. How are you going to ensure that this doesn't decrease the amount of students coming into the country for education, who themselves provide a large economic benefit to the country as a whole?
Now, sorry, are you talking about visitors' visas, or you're talking about those who are coming to study?
Those coming to study.
Right. Well, one of the reasons that we think higher education is so important because it attracts a lot of people from abroad. That's very important for the income that universities get because of the fees that overseas students pay. We've got to make sure that the system is fair. We want to make sure that we deal with longer term immigration on a fair and reasonable basis. But we want to support higher education, and I think the policies that we've set out will do that. And I don't think that policy is going to damage higher education.
Okay.
So Labour has made where they stand on 0 hours contracts incredibly clear, and a lot of students rely on the flexibility of these contracts and these jobs to earn a living. So how are you going to account for those people, those students that rely on those contracts?
Well, it's not going to get in the way at all. Look, the argument on 0 hours contracts and exploitative 0 hours contracts is simply this. If in practice you are working a regular number of hours a week, but you're still on a 0 hours contracts, we say after a period of time you should get a contract for those hours. It seems only fair and reasonable, and not just, for students, the flexibility for some people maybe what they want, which is fine. But if you are regularly working, you shouldn't continue to have a 0 hours contract. And thinking about the future, the fact is someone on a 0 hours contract who doesn't know what's coming in has got absolutely no chance of getting a mortgage. We have a housing crisis, we need to build more homes, it's why rents are so high, and we want to change the system so that we move to 3-year tenancies for tenants, because that's going to help people provide more security, put a ceiling on rent increases in years 2 and 3, and stop lettings agent fees being charged to students and other renters.
Now, a bit of a more personal question to you, Mr. Benn. In your last term, you consistently voted on side with Labour. If there was a strong reaction in the community against a particular Labour policy, would you vote against that in Parliament? Would you represent the views of your constituency or your party?
Look, in the end, each member of Parliament makes a judgment about how he or she is going to vote. I'm very proud to be a member of the Labour Party, and the things that we've been talking about in this interview are going to be achieved by electing Labour members of Parliament, and then all of those Labour members of Parliament voting for a reduction in tuition fees, voting to abolish the bedroom tax, voting for 3-year tenancies, voting to put money in the NHS. The fact is we are a party and a movement. But in the end, any member of Parliament has to make a decision and then face the consequences if that is the case. But I believe in unity is strength, actually, as a basic principle, and that is how the Labour Party, since its creation, has been able to, working with other people, because change comes about from the bottom and from Parliament working together. That's how change comes about.
And finally, in 30 seconds or less, please, why should people vote you or vote Labour?
Well, I hope that people will vote Labour, and if they're in Leeds Central, I hope they'll vote for me, because I think we need a fairer country. The fact is, people look at the current government and they don't believe that David Cameron and George Osborne are on their side. They're not. They've got the wrong set of values. If you introduce the bedroom tax in the same month that you cut income tax for millionaires, you can't credibly say we're all in it together. And Ed Miliband is committed to a fairer society, a society that works for the majority, and a long-term economy where people can raise their children, get a house, build a better life for them. But we need change. We need a fairer Britain, and that's why I hope people will vote Labour.
Thank you very much for your time, Hiliary. Pleasure speaking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Best of luck.
Indeed.